Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Industrial Insights Podcast. I have Parth Pathani with me with Prologis, who's Director of Warehouse Design and Innovation. And we're here today talking about robotics and warehouse automation. And I met Parth through some of the marketing that we do, but also a need for a manufacturer that I work with that might need some help with the Essentials program. And so that was a great way to connect with him and with his team that does Essentials and Solutions and see what other resources Prologis provides other than just the building. And so I feel like they've done such a fantastic job of going really deep on anything and everything you would need as a tenant and as an operator. And so this is a great example of that. So Parth, thank you for joining me today.
No, thank you, Justin, for having me, and I appreciate you. I appreciate the little shout out there. I think it's always good to connect with the peers in the industry, learn from each other. So I appreciate this opportunity to come and talk and just chat robotics, which is always fun.
Yeah. So how did you get into all this mess in the first place?
And I like the origin stories, right? So it all began, I think, so I started working for a tier one WMS provider like 10 years ago. The company's name is Manhattan Associates. It's a pretty solid company when it comes to WMS space. So a lot of retailers started using it. So I was designing the warehouses for them,
This is
implementing software.
Manhattan?
Yes, Manhattan
They're well
Associates.
known, right? They're a big
Yeah,
player, aren't they?
yeah,
Yeah.
and they started out of Manhattan Beach, California, actually. That's where Manhattan Associates.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was working for them, designed warehouses, implemented softwares. It basically implemented business process flows into the software of a WMS. So learned a lot of things doing those things, moved to a consulting company, implemented robots, started implementing robots there. So I did the first implementation of, or the early implementation of AMRs with an on-demand packaging machines, implementing with the WMS software. So that was fun project we did right before COVID, 2018-19.
Okay.
And realized that I enjoy robotics, and because even at Manhattan, I used to work with like unit sorters, footwalls, and stuff like the physical design or material flow of it. I moved to Berkshire Grey, another robotics company out of it, so learned a lot. So eventually, it has been. I think the origin story goes back to this way. Like during my undergrad, I used to play with robots. Never found a place at
There
to
he goes
implement.
again, playing with his robots again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now I can play with robots again. And at Prologis, that's what the goal is to help. So there is a term that I'd like to use called designing robot forward warehousing, robot forward warehouses, because I'm of a belief right now that the completely lights out warehouse is still far. I think today is going to be mostly robot forward warehouses, because as simple as like the safety around the buildings, the safety aspect of it, the maintenance aspect of it, that's all still is human driven and will be human driven. So I'm still a believer in robot forward. Still trying to figure out if lights out warehouse is still in the future or not.
Yeah, what a thing to imagine. And so
Yeah.
lights out would mean a building that is fully automated, that just runs 24/7 or as much as you need or want it to, and can handle everything from product in to storage to packaging to shipping and to outbound cargo.
It'll
Yeah.
be pretty exciting, but I feel like you still need maintenance team to support those robots. So I'm still feel like there is gonna be a human aspect until unless humanoids come over and take the maintenance aspect of it.
Yeah, I just connected with someone from the program that I'm going through in the University of Arkansas that came up with a small business that he's launching that is optimizing the picking routes for people in the warehouse that are picking like consumer products.
Yeah.
And just like you can optimize your network of buildings and you can optimize your transportation, this is another way to take this. And this is kind of the opposite of robotics in the sense of maybe instead of investing in robotics, you would optimize your human picking first. And
Yes.
maybe that's a cheaper alternative or like a way to get immediate returns with a lower investment, and knowing that that might not be the last evolution, but that is still like a better improvement from maybe how people pick today. And so that was the last person that I just talked with that
Nice.
was teaching me a little bit more about that, which is interesting to see. Like that'd be another version of like AI or machine learning, or like using a different way of like improving the process.
No, I think that's a great point, and I think that's something that even though I would love to put as many robots in the warehouse as possible, I'm also cognizant of like I've grown from like the bottom up approach, so that any implementations or any things that I try to vision, I also think from a perspective of that, hey, when the rubber meets the road, how the things will be. So I think when it comes to warehousing space, at least I'm a believer that every warehouse goes through like a maturity curve. So if you're a simple warehouse just starting off, right, doesn't make sense robots to have you because you're trying to figure out. But as you go through that maturity curve, and I try to divide it like 5 stages. Fourth is where you, third, between 3 and 4 is when you really start thinking about robots. Second is still like just setting up technology piece, like the network infrastructure, the WMS piece of it, or some kind of technology piece around that. And then you went into 3 and 4 when you start thinking about optimization, putting more robots, trying to really gain the max out of the capacity, along with the technology piece, but also from the material flow perspective.
Yeah, I would imagine you being at Prologis that you would be connected with then all of the like tier one 3PLs and like all of the largest retailers that would be making the largest capital investments in these types of projects. So that's got to be pretty fun for you to see what everyone's doing and learn from that as much as you're helping like guide and counsel and consult as well.
Correct. Yeah, I think that's the fun part of this job. Just the challenges, right? Everyone, even though warehousing, like there is a thing that I believe is like, even though warehousing on a material flow is just a rectangle, if you look at it from the sky, 30,000 feet view level, but within each rectangle, there is so many different things that go into it, and that makes it each challenge a unique challenge. Because if I'm shipping furniture, I have a different problem than shipping a cosmetic or a pharmaceutical. So it's always fun. And as you said, like working with the big names, just understanding the unique pain points and trying to solve for it using technology, using robots. It seems as simple as like a racking job is always fun to solve for that.
Yeah. What are the most common pain points you're seeing, and what are the most common like solutions that you're helping people implement?
Most common problems, I mean, even though it's like it's coming from Prologis, it's gonna sound a little funny. It's like rents are going up and labor is going up. So that's something. It has been going up since, I would say, it's not something that happened this year. It's since
That's
I think 2000.
universal. That's like
Yeah,
yeah, everybody has to deal with that in some manner.
correct. I remember the early days before COVID, like 2018, 19, where we were trying to make business case for robots or some kind of automation. It was the play around like labor saying that, hey, everyone, it's becoming Uberization of everything. So everyone was going for and for the right
I
reasons. They were
love a
all
good
going
Uber
for,
reference. Yeah.
yeah. So it's like they were looking for driving for Uber who could give $20 an hour versus working in a warehouse, right? So that happened, and COVID happened, and everyone started expanding. They were all busting out of their seams, so all look for space. And now this year was election year, so a lot of uncertainty. So everyone was sitting on their cash. So to answer your question, what problems I've been seeing is because of so much uncertainty in last few years, and it's a cyclic. Every few years we have this cycle. But COVID was, of course, one in decades, if you will. The thing that happened with that was people are little customers are really try to figure out the plan around uncertainties that has happened in the last 4 years. While planning around the uncertainties, they have so many network or so many issues around or open challenges around their network where they have like 5 buildings. Now they need to consolidate, or they were at 6 buildings and need to go 8 buildings because their business plan changed. So the problem is, they need to get control over their network. I think that's something that I'm seeing lot of conversations around that what should we do into 2025? Labor and rent is always perennial, always there, nothing changes. And going into 2025, I think it's still like the first quarter also as well. I feel like it's gonna be little bit of a challenge for companies who are relying very heavily on tariffs because
Yeah.
they have a two they are gonna be walking on a tightrope, right? They're like, should I front load my inventory or should I go and invest in something that can grow my business? I mean, front loading inventory is still going to be helpful for them because they even can eventually sell it. So that's going to be a
A
decision making
one-time
point.
shot though.
Yeah,
You can
one
only
time
do that
shot.
once. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So that's something I'm looking forward in 2025, like how folks are going to solve for it, because that means that they have need more space. Similar early COVID days, if you will, where not everyone will be impacted, but companies who are relying heavily might need more space or go vertical, try to use more vertical space in the bit.
Yeah. And how do these needs get connected with you? Are you probing for them? Is it when they ask that it gets routed to you? Or how does someone's operation and this need for them to consider like a warehouse automation and robotics like meet with you, and how does that come together?
Yeah. Yeah. So with Prologis, one thing that we and you and market can attest to that. Like we talk to brokers every day. We love our brokers, so we always make sure that our brokers knows about the things that we are doing. The second thing is we have a job person or job title called Essential Solutions Manager. These
Yeah,
individuals are pretty
I
much
got
in every.
confused. Solutions, sometimes the same, sometimes different. I don't really worry too much about it, but it's just
Yeah.
like it's the team that helps it. Like
Correct. So we
you
have a
know,
team. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So they are pretty much on road every day, meeting clients, visiting each buildings, and they are talking to customer about their pain points. That bubbles up eventually to me or someone in my team who is product specialist about their, like, say, let's network or electrical or physical security, stuff like that. But eventually it bubbles up to us. That's the bottoms up approach. Then we try to do top down approaches, meaning that we try to talk to decision maker at big companies like, hey guys, this is what we are seeing in the market. What are you seeing? Is there anything you having problems with it? We can help you out. We have the real estate access. We understand the warehousing space, and we can be really that growth partner for them right now.
Yeah,
And
growth
this goes,
partner. I love
yeah,
that. Like if you are scaling, like you need people that can help you scale. Yeah,
correct. This is not something new in the market, right? Shopify is doing it. A lot of 3PLs are saying that we are going to be a growth partner. And you
totally.
can see from the industry itself, like 3PLs will help with the fulfillment piece. They'll have the tech space. They'll help do all the SEO, marketing, and everything, even the OMS space of it, because they are helping brands to just focus on meeting their customers or reaching their customers. So that's the eventual, I think, the value prop or the things that we are trying to do at Prologis for our customers or tenants or potential customers is, guys, we're going to be a growth partner. Come to us. We understand warehousing space. We can help out. We have ecosystems from all the way to doctors to brokers to all the way to automation and robotics.
So does this mean you have to go to all the conventions, or you like
Yes.
to go to Modex, or to go to like
Modex, you'll see for sure. Modex and Chromate, I can never miss. I went to Pack Expo recently. Plus, a few of my leadership is going to be at Manifest
yeah,
as
everyone
well.
applauds when you come down. They're like, "Yay, Parth is here!"
Nah, I'm not that important. I just know a thing or two. That's it.
Totally, that's fun, and you get to see all the cool new stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Being close to a lot of startups, just because of the role in the conversations that I have, usually I get to know a lot of things that are happening in the robotic space, in the tech space. So I'm blessed for that for sure.
So can you tell us about like a system or two that is the most exciting or potential, or one that you've worked on recently?
So systems, from a systems perspective or a robotics systems perspective, I'm very, and people folks know it, like there is always going to be new entrants, new solutions that are always going to be in the market. What I'm very excited about is like how there are so many new solutions using the cube of the building, trying to solve using robots. Right? Initially, in early days, we had racks, we went VNA. Now we are going from VNA to a more of a ASRS solution, a cube ASRS solutions, where getting denser and denser and denser, that is always helpful.
How
So
do
that
we
I'm
make
very
aisles smaller? How do we get rid of aisles? And how do we
correct.
go as high as we can with different types of weights of products and like, yeah, different,
Exactly.
yeah.
And that's one of the things that I'm always excited about, because it's a common sense, but the dollars to invest in that to make that happen is always high. So even though I walk a building and I'm like, hey guys, can you use the cube? I can't say that. I need to understand the dynamics of that business. Like, hey guys,
You're
what I
wasting space. You must think that all the time. Yeah.
yeah, so because I can always say that, but I need to be, I don't understand the business dynamics. So I need to ask those questions to understand that. Because it's very common for anyone to come walk the building and say, hey, you're not using the space. But did you ask the right questions to understand why not they're using it, right? So coming back to the question, I think one of the things I'm very excited about is like solutions that go high. Cube solutions are pretty exciting, and there are many good players in this space. Like one comes to mind is AutoStore. 20 years in the market, a strong presence across all the different verticals. So I'm very bullish on them. I'm very excited to see their implementations. So that we have been working with AutoStore internally, Prologis as well. So that's exciting for us. And we have a
I'm
solid
helping
partnership.
someone with one of the people that worked for them on a project now that's in its very infancy. So I've at least gone from not being aware to being aware and like seeing some of the design features and like the promise and the value proposition and the investment that's needed. And it seems super promising for specific use cases. And then I think what is also interesting there is what needs to be done to the building to prepare it for this system and fire safety and fire suppression and like a flatness and like if you need mezzanine for fire and just like there's a whole bunch of stuff that comes into like the real estate realm and wrapping it into a deal of who's going to pay for all of that and how does that relate to your rental amount and how long of a lease you have and if that's all in alignment. So that's at least how our worlds have collided a little bit on
I know.
similar stuff. That's great.
That's exactly where I want to. I might have a question for you as well. Is like right now, one of the things that I'm noticing from the industry. I was an end user for a couple of years. I used to have 14 buildings, and I opened up a building in Terrell, Texas as well. And as I was working with as I went through this journey, I realized there are two transactions that happens like on a higher level. One is that you have this real estate transaction that happens to find a lease, to get in the building, and to sign the lease, get the TI dollars. And then you have the second transaction, which is your within the four walls, what are the solutions you're implementing? Is it a racking forklifts and stuff like that, or is it an automation solution or robotic solution? So looking at that, feels like there could be some efficiency gains can be made if it's a one transaction. And as you think about the industry, as you talk to a lot of other industry veterans in this space, is like, do you see a value there? Is there a value in being one transaction going to someone landlord who does all the thing? And what are the concerns or what are the benefits there? Any insights on that?
Yeah, part of it is like a capital structure and financing. And so I've heard a little bit about a few niche players that would consider buying the building and investing in your cube solution, and then they would sign a lease with you. And so if you have the credit for it, they're the ones who are putting up the capital to buy the property and the solution. But like it's almost barely even exists, I feel like, in the industry. And surprisingly, those two aren't connected as much as you would think they are. Yeah. Because
interesting, yeah. I always was curious about that. Like, is there a value? Is that how is the industry happening? Because I talk to customers once they're in the building and trying to help them out, or they are trying to get into the buildings and like help them out. But I was always curious at a higher level if that was a conversation that was happening.
Well, do you help finance automation and robotics?
Yes. Yeah, we do have financing that can help them.
So that would be an example of those two being tied together in one. But it's not like it goes into your lease contract, like it's still separate, even though like you can run a parallel path on it.
Correct. I mean, I'm not typically thinking just one document, but like the synergies can be achieved with two parallel work streams.
Yeah. That's I generally think of it as there's a certain investment horizon. And so you're investing in your lease in a building and you're investing in the operation, and you need to make sure that those align. And so
makes sense.
But yeah, do they align with one group? I guess here it could kind of, if you can finance it, get a building and finance it all at the same time. But it's kind of when the wallet is out and you're making investments, like, how do you do it in the best way possible?
Makes sense.
And I feel like that's where oftentimes the robotics guys will reach out to the real estate guys, or the real estate guys will reach out to the robotics guys. Yeah.
That's what we are doing. And to your point, I think I can validate that data point as well, because one of the things that we do, just because of the real estate team that we have, we coordinate a lot with our real estate teams to help us understand like the layout of the building, like a fire suppression systems, power requirements, floor flatness for a QBSRS solution like an auto store. So the thing comes on the building. So we try to work with our real estate team to really have those answers even for the tenant, so tenant doesn't have to tap two different people to answer that question.
Yeah, I have seen a little bit also of properties that have gone up for sublease that have had a system built into it. And then can you find someone who wants that, like a sublease, and who also has an operation that can make use of that system, and then do you buy it from them?
Correct.
Yeah, it's a very infrequent, but we've seen it a couple times to know okay, that's a unique offering and for a certain segment of the business, like there's probably real value there.
Yeah. And this goes back to that, and that's one of the data point or conversation I came internally as well, is like, hey, what happens if you're an piece of automation in the building, and you are trying to sublease it or trying to lease it to a new tenant? Usually that's when the conversation happened about how do we make that happen? Why is that? It goes back to the saying of cold storages, right? If it's a cold storage building, if the landlord is investing in, will it the next tenant be a cold storage client as well?
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the conversion happening as well. So I can see.
Yeah, and how much of a system is parts versus labor? And so,
Yeah.
like, if you have to take it down and set it back up again, or take it down and sell it and put it back up again, yeah, I feel like that all goes into the math of making a real estate decision too. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah, cool. And then it's interesting to think of the framework of going more dense and just like thinking of it cubic wise. I hadn't really thought about it, although so many people think of like VNA. And then I remember the COVID days of there being like a shortage of forklifts for VNA systems. And like that was a big long lead time item.
Yeah.
How about the robotics part of like picking products to people, and you get involved in that part too?
Yeah. So yeah, when it comes to robots, I can go as simple as like just a cube ASRS solution. It's not simple, but like from a cube ASRS, there's a point solution. But then there are also solutions where you combine a cube ASRS with an on-demand packaging, with an AMR, and pretty much make the whole outbound process automated to a level where everything comes to a packer, and the packer just has to put everything into a box and seal it. And even for the sealing, you can push it through a seal taper, and you can tape it. That is a nicer one as well. But then I also worked on like a robotic picking arms, picking from the tote, picking from a box, putting into a tote, putting in a poly bag, inducting into a unit sorter. But robotic arms, AMRs, cube ASRS, truck unloading, loading, those are all the different use cases I've been worked with or I'm actually pursuing right now. So many applications. At the end, it's a business case that drives, and the data drives the solution. So we'll figure out based on the data what we really want to go towards.
Yeah. So how does that work? So yeah, kind of as you're walking the path of like discovery with clients, what's a couple of frameworks for how you open up that conversation and try and hone in on opportunities?
Yeah. So there are 4 or 5 steps that usually we go through when it comes to
I
discovery.
got the maturity curve. I like that one. That was a great one. I'm going to remember that one.
Yeah, and that helps. One of the things that I learned in my early days, like if you can, simple is hard. If you can make it simple, that means you understand the field really well. So that's how I think about it. So for our discovery side of the world, the way we engage, or the things that I think about from a steps perspective is like, initially, the first step is usually engaging with the customer, really understanding the business problem. If it's like a greenfield implementation, then you want to understand what they're trying to solve for. If it's a brownfield as well, so understand the business problem, understand their operating characteristics, like how much throughputs that you're looking for, what are the numbers, order volume, SKU data, and all those data, understanding operating characteristics. Then we go into the second step where I feel like more of a rigorous data analysis. So that's where the exercise of data analysis happen. If it's once during the first step, if we identify, typically for most of the customers, picking is where they want to start because 55 to 65% of labor goes there. So if we identify picking operation needs help, we will then try to ask data around picking operation, the order volume for last 1 year, SKU data, on-hand inventory snapshots, how much was shipped, and all those nice things around it. Then we have a data analytics team that can help us crunch data pretty easily. Once we crunch it, we bring it to our team where we look at the data and now to try to use our expertise around like, hey, this customer, even though during the first step,
brain power comes into play.
Correct. So at step 1, if we identify this customer, even though they are saying picking is a problem and they want to go too deep and they have a $3 million budget, we look at the data and we say, I don't think so. Too deep makes sense to them because they don't have forks, don't have that much SKU depth. I think they're still selective pallet racking, or maybe they should go pallet carton flow or ASRS solution, because in $3 million we can give an ASRS solution, right? Solutioning happens during that. So solution design happens during that phase 3 process. And even once we do the internal solution design, we try to go to customer and make it more iterative that, hey guys, we looked at the data. you asked for this were a business problem, this were the operating characteristics. We looked at it. We feel based on our expectation there are one or two recommendations, and where you are leaning towards, why you're leaning towards one versus the other, what are the thoughts, and make it more consultative at that point. And at the end of that step, which is I feel like a fourth step, we have a solid design that we feel like pretty solid that this will solve the business problem the customer is trying to solve for within the parameters they gave. And then at that point, we will final step would be pretty much presenting him a proposal with all the numbers around it. During that step 3 and 4 is when we try to engage our partners as well. So just in case, if the opportunity comes along and we identify auto store solution is a great solution, we will, after step 2, we will tap onto our partners that, hey guys, we feel like this client with this operating characteristic business problem, or it can a solid opportunity for auto store. Can we work together, validate the solution, and go to the customer, go to the tenant in front of tenant and try to make a case for that?
Yeah, and that's great to start with picking. I can see that. What
Yeah.
would be like the first couple of picking solutions that you would first like people generally start with?
For picking, so going back to that maturity curve, one of the things that I've noticed is not everyone has a lot of dollars to spend for a new solution right away, especially solution which needs integration with the WMS. What they, if capital is always everyone doesn't, no one wants to overspend anything, and there is
Free
always
money is gone. Yeah, you got to be very frugal.
correct, and also WMS is something that everyone thinks about before taking any project. So considering those two as a constraint, typically folks starts with like a pick assist AMR or like a 6 river robots, locust robots, fetch robotics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's where they start because they can see a immediate improvement. They might be doing 60 units per hour in picking. They can go to 100, 120. And on a good days, they can go up to around 150, 160. So that's a pretty nice improvement with a less involvement or less invasiveness, if you will, to your existing operations. But then there are customers who are like, I'm going to be busting out of seams next year because I'm going to do a lot of acquisitions. And at that point, they're like, I need to spend dollars on it. I need to prepare for it. Because of the lead times, I know that any solution that I need to bring in, I need to start today. I have seen some customers also or some tenants looking into like going vertical as QBSRS solution and like, hey guys, I know I'm going to grow next year. I know I'm going to do acquisition. A lot of inventory is going to come in. I need to plan for you right now because many solutions also have a lead time, right? For like AMRs
Man. Yeah.
So AMRs could be 3 to 6 months project if your IT resources are aligned, and an ASRS
If you
solution could
design it without spending over design it or spend too much time changing the design.
Yeah, and then an ASRS solution could be a year from now, right? So lead time is so important. So those
And
calculations come
that's
into
built custom for the client.
yeah. So from the design to the first order that can be picked, it's usually 9 to 12 months. That's what I've seen.
Yeah. That's timing. That's
Yeah.
such a big one. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why, like this year, I feel like this year was most of the tenants that I talked to, most of the customers I talked to, they were really started assessing what kind of solution is the right solution for them. Because I feel like in 2025 or second half of 2025, once the tariff conversations are clear to everyone, I think they will like, okay, I'll use my 2024 to really figure out what I want. 2025 is clear to me. Let's go and now spend it.
Yeah. We're all banking on it.
I know. I think this year was, I just was reading Prologis report. Like, yeah, this year demand was less. Southern California saw rent decrease of 3%, which was very interesting. Like,
Rents
wow.
can go down a little bit for a small period of time. Yeah.
So that was interesting data insight that I read. Yeah, overall, it's still on a higher trajectory.
Correct. Yeah. It's like seeing the stock market go down a little bit from a record high. Like
Correct.
technically it's down, but it's still a record high. Fantastic. Yeah. That's a great thinking of like starting with picking. And then it was interesting to learn about like the robots as a service and how you can try them in a smaller amount and that like you're leasing them more than you're buying them. It's like it makes that entry level. That seemed like a great value prop of like a way to make that technology like accessible and like more closer to entry level.
Correct. And just to give you a couple of data points on that, the RAS model, Robots as a Service model, the way I've seen it, there are at least 2 different versions to that, meaning that one is that you have a flat rental rate that you pay. And then the second one is like based on the picking that you do. So if you say
Okay.
picking a system AMR is like if you are gonna use 1,000 units per hour, that's what your dollars are gonna be. If it's gonna be 2,000 units per hour, your dollar increases or reduces, stuff like that.
Yeah. A penny per pick or so like, yeah.
Right, that's a nice
Yeah.
one, yeah.
That's wild because that is a way for them to get some in the revenue game along with their customers and to
Correct.
like grow with them, or rather have what you pay be based on the value that like you derive from that like a solution or implementation. Yeah. Do you see that in any other warehouse automation system, or that's kind of like specific to robotics, really?
So Cube ASRS solutions have AutoStore as, for example, has a solution called PIO or PO, I think. They do as a service model as well. They pretty much, they ask you to pay some install fee for the first time. And after that, it's pretty much the pay per pick fee that they
Okay.
have.
So they
I
have to
think,
bet on you, right? Of
yes,
like, are you the right fit for them as much as are they the right fit for you?
correct. The credit check around that to make sure that you guys gonna keep paying your whatever the rental contract is.
Yeah, I love thinking about what that conversation looks like. Like, what do they need to see to know you're credit worthy, or where is their risk in that for them? And that's something like no one ever talks about, and you never really know how it's like the metrics that they use and the conversations that are had around that.
Yeah, so that's something.
Complicated.
It's very new, to be honest. I think it's they just started 2 years ago, I think, for that specific use case or
I would think
specific
Wall
company.
Street would be all over this of like, how do we get in on e-commerce's revenues and like finance and like help these companies scale that way and try and make a buck with it.
But then it's always the conversation when it goes to CFO of any end user. They're like, okay, I'm going to pay over the 5 years, $1 million where I can buy this thing for CK right now.
Yeah.
Where should I put my dollars? And not everyone is thinking about RAS models because even with RAS, one of the things that I at least, or the industry unfortunately learned was as a startup, and not established players, but as a startup, you take on a lot of debt because now your robots are in the field, they're not paid for. So you are crash crunch because you cannot, your dollars are stuck into the equipment and now you cannot do any more R&D around it, bring new functionalities and stuff like that. We have seen few startups close down just because of this reason that they led with RAS model and they were just having cash problems.
Yeah. In that they bought it instead of leased it, or
They
like,
leased it everything. They leased everything, and now if you're leasing, you don't get like if it's a robotic arm, let's say $300,000 robotic arm, industrial grade robotic arm. Now you're leasing it. That dollar is not gonna come to you until that whole rental contract is completed.
okay. You're talking about for the provider, not for the end user, or for the end user?
No, for the provider. Sorry, for the provider, for
Yeah.
the
Okay.
startups.
Got it.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That's like their own startup risk case of like what revenue model works for a startup versus for a mature RAS company.
correct. Yes,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
the startups. Yep.
You don't want your provider to go under while you've got all their stuff in your building and they're maintaining it and like they help with the API and all that kind of stuff. That would be a problem for everybody.
And that's one of the reason I think, as I said, 2024, a lot of companies, if you walk the ProMat this year, Modex this year, concern was like, hey, what's my maintenance plan? How are you like, and that gives you, if you undertone is, are you going to be there 5 years from now? Right?
Yeah.
That's the
We think
undertone.
so. We're trying to be.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
yeah.
What else have I missed? What haven't I covered that end users are need to know when they're thinking about this stuff?
One thing that I always try to say in all my conversation is like automation is like if you walk the floor of Modex and ProMat, it's gonna be you're drinking from a fire hose or maybe 5 fire hoses, if you will. It's so much information and so much data out there. I think at the end it's a tool that you got to solve for. There are companies who can help you solve for it. Of course, the soft plug of Prologis Essentials. But overall, I think there are companies, there are many players in the market who can really help you cut through the noise and help you out there. Remember, one thing that I always think is like self-education is important for any transformation. And if you're trying to transform your warehouse, no doubt you can rely on external partners, external expertise. you need to have at least 101 on that. Like at least understand that space a little bit, so you can now when you're talking to someone, you are able to talk. You know that they're going to help you, and so like self education is something I always try to push end users to do.
Yeah, you sound like a father. Yeah, you got to learn this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I have one. Probably that's why.
Yeah. And what is something you're excited to see at Modex if you think of just new cool toys?
Cool new toys. I think I'm going to be excited to see this year is like the adoption of Chat GTP kind of solution into WMS space, because I
Okay.
feel like they are ripe for that. I remember my days initially when implementing WMS, I had to write queries to figure out some data. If I
Yeah.
can talk to Chat GTP or something like Chat GTP or Claude, like, hey guys, tell me about this data, and they just do all the exercise for me, that can really help me.
I'm thinking about adding a new product, and I think it would be 10,000 units per month. How would that fit into my current system?
Yes. Tell me about it. Design
Yeah.
me and the whole system. Yeah. I'm telling you, so many
Parth says
opportunities
it's
with
going
that
to
thing.
be 20 grand. I think it's going to be 50 grand. What do you think? And then like have it like, yeah,
So
that's
that's what I'm
interesting.
excited
Yeah.
about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because you see it in every other part of your world. Like it should apply here, and no doubt is. And then just maybe we're not seeing it yet, and will soon.
Real
Yeah,
soon. Well, I'll be surprised if in next 1 year none of these tier one WMS providers come out with something like that, because it's a
how can
right
they
away
not?
use case.
Yeah, yeah,
Too interesting to see that. No doubt I want to put more robots, but I'm also coming from a WMS world. I feel like there are many opportunities for use Chat GTP LLMs kind of solutions in the WMS side as well.
yeah. So when you're buying Christmas presents, you're probably buying robots.
Like we bought actually one. That's funny you mentioned that. We actually just bought upgraded a house cleaning robot.
Totally. That's so fun. Well, I think that's our time today, Parth. I appreciate you spending it with me and going through some of that. That gave me and a lot of other people good frameworks to think through what is increasingly a bigger decision and on people's minds these days.
Awesome. No, thank you for having me, and it was a great conversation. And thank you everyone for listening in.
And so, if you need more Parth in your life, you've got a show, or you got episodes of your own coming out, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I'm trying to get some. Just the Thanksgiving time was super busy for us. I'm trying to get more shows around. I should bring you on as well. But overall, I think I'm still pretty much knee deep into like just figuring out in the Prologis how can I create value for our tenants. Just really help them from being that growth partner, as I mentioned in the beginning, and not just look at as a real estate, because we have a strong sustainability presence. We want to be a strong solution provider as well within the buildings.
I have a national client where once we started leasing buildings from you, that's the only way we want to do it now. And isn't that such a great testament to like it's working?
Yeah.
And so now if we have to go lease from someone else, we're like, can you do it their style? Or like, can you use their document? And so it's interesting to see like it makes a big difference.
I appreciate that. I'm sure that once my marketing team is going to hear that, they'll be so excited to hear that.
Yeah, totally. Well, happy holidays, Parth. It's good to spend time with you.
Happy holidays, Justin. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.